So before you start working on recording your macro, you at first need to see these 3 videos. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. So I describe how you can work on creating and writing your macro codes in VBA in Excel. And here is a quick start. You can see if you want to start quickly, you can take a look at this one. Also in those videos, especially the last one, I explained all these examples, so you should practice these. Maybe in the exam I will be asking you to write codes for these objectives, let's say, or to fit some columns, what to write as a code. Maybe I will ask you some quiz questions. And today I am interested to talk about how you can record a macro. So in this PowerPoint, I added some slides. So you can see we will start from recording macro in a worksheet, and then open the macro anytime, and how you can run them on in another Excel page, all what you already recorded. So let's go to the Excel page and let's see how we can record a simple macro, and then we will modify them or we will apply somewhere else. So I'm opening an Excel page on an Excel sheet, let's say blank workbook, and save that blank work. Let's create a folder. And say the name of the file is practice record 1, and you need to save it as a macro enable file, macro enabled not template, macro enabled workbook, and save. Okay, so we saved it. Now we need to go to the developer tab. So on the developer tab, see there is a record macro option. So we need to select it and say what would be the name of this macro. So let's say macro 1, or let's say record 1, that's the name. And as a shortcut, what you want to add. So let's say Shift A. So that means that's the name of our macro, and that's the shortcut key. Okay, and that will be applied on this workbook. So okay, let's say I would like to add colors on these cells. So keep your cursor over there and let's go to home. Let's add a color, let's say yellow color, and over here let's add another color. So that's the 2 items we did. If you click anywhere, it will record it. So right now we say that we want to add 2 different colors. One is yellow, another is blue color. And then you can stop recording from bottom of the page, or you can go back to developer tab and stop recording from there. So let's stop recording. Let's see what we recorded. If you go to macros, you can see that on the macro what you recorded is saved here. So if you go to edit, you can see what you wrote. That means it's recorded your steps. So if I want to apply it somewhere else, let's say on this page somewhere in another cells, or maybe on the new sheet, then we can also apply that. But you can see on the first one, we wrote with selection. That means wherever you select, it will be applied this part over there. That means on this cell, it will be yellow. But for the next one, it selected the specific cell B2. It will always be applied only on B2 on any sheet. So let's see what I meant. So if I select, since you can see the active cell is D17, if I apply, then you can see it's only applied here and then jumps to B2 because we did not make it, we did not use the relative reference. So I will show you relative reference later. So that means we can apply in other pages, or so let's say, let's close it. The shortcut we created, Control Shift A on our macro. If I say Control Shift A, so you can see it also applied here. Or maybe let's say new page. On a new sheet, if I say keep my cursor somewhere, Control Shift A, that means it's applying the first one here and second one in B2 only. So that means you can also use shortcuts. So let's say I am interested to modify my macro. So let's go back to our macro and let's say why it's adding different colors. What are those? If I remove some of them, you will see that still it's giving us some color. Sometimes in recorded macro, we need to clean up. So let's say these two lines, I feel like we don't need them because we already have the color mentioned here and the shades and other color option is mentioned here. Also for V2, let's say we don't need these two lines since it's not doing anything. Okay, so let's apply. Also, if you forgot what was the key shortcut, so you can say Control Shift A for this record one macro. So let's keep our cursor somewhere here and then apply. So you can see it's the same thing that is happening. So that means it's not changing the color. So if you want to make some changes, so let's say you want to change it to B5, you can do that. So let's see whether it's working. It's working, right? So let's say you want to add the range for first one as well. So that means before the selection, you have to say where you want to apply that. So let's say I would like to apply it on A5, or let's say A6, and this one is B6. Let's apply that. Then where do we keep our cursor? It doesn't matter. So you can see it's applying on A6 and B6. So that means you can modify your code as well. Okay, so the next one is that how we can add double underline and record the macro. Let's say we have an example. Let's say we want to add double underline. Let's create a data file. So let's say tree and then dbh, and let's say tree number 1, tree number 2, tree number 3, and dbh, let's say 45, 55, 60. So let's say I want to add, if I have the sum of dbh or average of dbh, how we can add the underline on there. So let's say average of these dbh values. Okay, so we added the average. Now I would like to create a macro so that we can add underline on here. So let's say this is average, and then I'm interested to add double underline here. So let's go to developer tab, record macro, and say this one is double underline. DB double underline, and then this time let's say Control Shift D. Say okay, we just started the macro. How you would know? You will see that the sign is on, it's ongoing. So if I right click and say format cell, then to go to the font, and then let's say this one, and then double underline is here, so it will be, you can see previewed. Say okay. So that means the font change, the double underline is added, and then stop recording. Okay, so let's go to what we recorded. Macros, edit. So this is the macro edit. So you can see we have huge lines of codes because we did two things. We added the font style, and then we added the double underline. Okay, so let's say we want to clean up. So for cleaning up, so I say that I don't need these, or you can keep those as those if you want, and let's say I need just this underline option, underline, and then we did not add any theme color because it records the theme color from the Excel page. So let's say we remove those, and then if you go to the slide page, you will see that we only need this underline, and then start with end with end with. So let's say we just need this line, but since I said I would like to change few more things, so let's say let's make it larger. Let's say 20. That will be way too large, I know. So let's keep our program side by side. So let's say I copied these and keep it here as well. Paste special values, and then I want to apply. I want to make the font size larger, and then I would like to make the underline as well. So let's apply. So if I run, then you can see it's getting bigger, and then double underline is added underneath this value. If you do not need these fonts, then you can remove them, only apply double underline. So let's say anywhere you want to add double underline, you can add that. Just select and run, or let's save it since we changed it. Okay, so one more thing is that when we are creating macros, we can also save it as a personal macro, so that we can keep it in other Excel pages as well. So let's say record a macro, so you will see that there are more options. So if you say personal macro workbook, that means it will be stored in macro, and then you can use it anytime, and you can give it a shortcut, so that will be applied everywhere. So we can turn on the relative reference option. So in that option, macros will be recorded relative to the initially selected cell. So that means right now, wherever we select, we apply that macro. But if you say relative reference, that means macros will be recorded, but according to the where we are selecting them. So usually it selects the wherever we applied, it actually applies there. It's in an absolute mode. So let's see if we change it to relative reference, how it works. Let's turn on the relative reference in here, and then start recording a macro. So that means what we will do, if we keep our cursor somewhere else, that will be applied to that cell as well. So when relative reference is on, we need to record macro and say the macro is macro 4, and let's say we are not adding the shortcut. Let's start recording the macro. Let's say dbh and then height. The values are 12, then 42, and hit enter. Then stop recording. So let's see if we stop recording. Let's run the program. And keep your cursor somewhere and then run it. So you can see it's wherever we kept our cursor, it actually applied there. Previously, it was taking us back to where we applied. So that means because of relative reference is on, wherever we are, it applies to the reference. That means dbh we started first, and then after dbh it goes to the next column, height, and then it kept adding relative to the first one. So let's say we have some values. So you can see I added many values. This is similar to what you will be doing in the VBA exercise session. So let's say we added values. So all these values we added in these cells. Now we want to add color based on the number. That's the problem with VBA recording, because in VBA recording you can apply some tools but you cannot connect with these values. So when we write our code, that's the benefit. So we can add a code where we can say what's the value in each cell, based on that add a color. So you will see that on the VBA page I gave you the code and I copied that code and pasted here. So what I wrote in this code is that based on the value we will be adding codes. So I talked about loop before. So let's say again I started using the while loop. So I said that whenever we have values, so the active cell where I am keeping my cursor, so active cell is not equal blank. So this is blank cell, but whenever we add any value, that means this cell is selected, it's active, it's not blank. So apply these codes. So in this code we say that we will be moving from row to row, column to column. That's why we have two loops. So that means row to row, column to column, it will move. So at first it will go to the active cell, that means where we have our cursor, and then say that is the value true, if yes add a color, then end. Then go to the next. How we go to the next? So I said that in your active cell only move rows. So that means if it is here, it will move one row, the column will be the same. And then then again it will go back to the previous step, it will see whether it's 2, then it will add a color. And in end, when it reaches to the last row. When it reaches to the last row, then it says that now go to the next column. So that means you can see start from second column, but rows are same. So that means it goes to the next column and then apply. So let's see what we did in here. Select. So you can see wherever it has 2, it actually applied that color. So you can say now I would like to apply color when it's actually 1. So let's keep our cursor at the beginning and then apply. So you can see, since previously we added for 2, now we added for 1. So then you can change the active cell value, or you can say now let's clean up, clear the format, keep your cursor here and say, you know what, if it is more than 1, then apply the color. So let's see what happens. So you can see, other than 1, it applies to everywhere. Okay, so you can add other colors as well. So let's say I don't like this color, and then let's say take out this color and then hit Control spacebar, and you can select other colors. So let's say this one, and select and apply. So that means the color has changed. So Control spacebar opens up more option. So let's save them. So that's what I showed you in this looping, how we can add color. So you can see, I said if it is 1, if it is more than 1, then what to add. So you can type this code, and then you can see what's the color it's giving you and how it's moving. So the last item we have for VBA is the developer tab. So how we can use some tab so that we don't see the code, but we can apply code before on a tab, and we can anytime we need, we can apply on any data. So let's see how we can do that. So to work on the developer tab, we need to turn on the design code first. It should be highlighted. Then we have to insert the design. You can use any design. So let's say I would like to use this button design, and I would like to add that in here. Say new, and then you will see the button 1 is added. Okay. So over here we would like to add a code. Let's say I would like to find the sum of these values. Then I type active cell, that means wherever it's selected, dot formula. So you can select the formula. So let's say so over there, C1, we want to add the sum, add the formula sum, and then we need to sum from where to where. So let's say sum from the rows So I would like to find the sum in here. So what I need to do is I need to write down that over here I would like to add, but whenever it's adding this sum, then it need to go back to the 10 rows prior. So that means the previous 10 rows and then up to the previous row. So that means minus 10 row to up to here. It will add the values together. So that's what I am trying to do. So let's say I save them. Okay, I saved it and close it. So to apply them, you need to deselect the design mode, and then you can apply just by clicking. So you can see it's just adding them together. So that's what we try to do. So let's say this one, when design mode is on, we can right click and say edit text. So we can say that we would like to find the total total. Okay, then deselect them. And if you want to see the code, then if you need to see the code, then you need to go to the macros and open that, edit. So you can see we added the code before. We can apply from here or we can apply from there. So let's keep our cursor here and then apply. So that means it goes back to the previous 10 rows up to the previous row and sum them. So that's how developer tab works. So try yourself how you can add this code as well, so that you can write hello wherever you want, or maybe on cell A1. So practice them. And the most important part in design mode is that whenever you are adding them, the design mode should be selected. Whenever you are done and then you want to apply, the design mode should be deselected. So that's it on VBA. I hope you enjoyed. Try to practice all of them, try to read them, see the video, and ask me question during the lecture time. Thank you.